Welcome to the GG Live Virtual Summit, and I'm delighted to be here with you today. Now, I am no stranger to small business, by far means, and I'm definitely no stranger to hardship. I grew up in a small family business where my father operated a shop fitting and joinery business. It was world class. His work is still in some of the most amazing boutiques in Sydney. But I witnessed firsthand the ups and downs of a small biz. I also witnessed the stress and mental hardship it had on my dad, to the point it caused him to have a massive heart attack and stroke. Naturally, I vowed that I'd never run a small business myself. Marked by the pain of my dad's death and what happened to him as a small business owner, I took the easy road out. I went into corporate, where I worked with multinational organisations for several years, which was always going to be short-lived, let me tell you, as my connection and my calling to small business was evident. It was there. And I'd like to think I do it now in honour of my dad and for all the other business owners who struggle out there. So fast forward to 2022, and not only have I been a business owner for 17 years, but I also get to work with some amazing businesses as well. Now, all these businesses over the years have given me so much intel on how they continue to stay motivated in business, even when things are at their most challenging times. And let's take COVID. I mean, nothing was unexpected more than COVID. And I believe if I thought I had intel back then, my intel went through the roof just to see what kind of businesses survived and what kind of businesses came out the other end. So today I'm just going to share with you lots of different things, all my learnings on the back of lots of small business as well. So bear with me while I just go through and share my screen. While I'm doing that, I just want to also remind you all, if you've got any questions, please, let's keep this interactive. If you think that you want to know something that I haven't covered, I'm more than happy to go through that and ask questions, or we can leave it to the very end. So you're not going to see the big me now, you will see the tiny little me, and I am going to go through the slides with you. So today is about measure, count, and progress, the secret to staying motivated in business, just in case you thought you were in another session. So the first thing I want to cover off is what I call the 50-50 rule. You know, the good old 80-20 rule definitely does not exist here. When I did my research, it was evident that, there wasn't a landslide shift over one or the other. I found that 50% of people who go into business go into it because they have great ideas, they have great concepts, they want to be their own boss. Yeah, they want to work 60, 80 hours a week, said no boss ever. Brilliant leadership, likable people skills, well, that can be debatable sometimes depending on who you work with, and extraordinary enthusiasm and passion. Most business owners have that, and they're remarkably self-motivated and they're willing to take a risk. So let's break that down a little bit. Being confident, enthusiastic and passionate means that they're really good at inspiring those around them, whether that's their clients, their team, business partners, suppliers, and sometimes even family members too. Being self-motivated and self-reliant, often there is no one getting us out of bed in the morning. It's us. We rely on our alarm clock because there's no one telling us that you didn't check in today or show up to work. So they have to be self-motivated. It is part of the trait of running your own business. And willing to take a risk, well, the first thing we tend to do is leave a job that's paying us so well to go into something that probably has no income for a year or months. And some people also use their own money to invest in that business. But there is a big difference between, say, spotting an opportunity and going after one. And this is what small business people do. We take risks every single day. So apart from why they go into business, why do people stay in business is something that I always question, and what makes them so special. So like I was saying, over the years and more so with COVID, I was able to gauge why they stay. Now, staying in business comes down to being motivated. If you have no motivation, chances are that you're going to let everything slide. So why do they stay? Well, being a numbers person and the accountant I am, I'm definitely going to put my hand up and say it's because they monitor their finances. They monitor it very closely. Reading financial reports is not interesting, but they know it's a must. It's critical for them to understand their business finances. They're able to focus on what's important as well, because we have lots to do. So many things to do running a small business, and most of them, are periphery type stuff. But someone who is motivated will focus on one thing and make sure they complete that. They also seek advice from others. Okay, they know they don't have all the answers, but they go and they find mentors or financial advisors, accountants, and other experts. Possibly someone else in their industry is doing what they're doing and they want to draw from that. They invest in tech and marketing. They're not afraid to do it. So some of these people probably already did this before COVID. And what we found is we had the laggards who invested in tech because of COVID, because it was their only means of making sure their business kept running. So but most of these people see the value in it and they're willing to invest because they're willing to automate, and they know that if you have inefficient processes, it's going to cost you dollars at the end of the day. They're open to change. They're not stubborn, and they're always open to change is something else that I've noticed. Now, resilient is something that we were all tested and measured on with COVID. But most small business owners are resilient, and they have this belief that they need to keep going. They're goal focused. They're driven to succeed. Okay, they don't rest on their laurels. They're not happy with the status quo. That's quite foreign to them. But they're able to set goals and they're able to go after them. It is a trait of theirs. And if they don't achieve their goals, they don't give up. And the last one is that they know how to separate work and family life. Now, I do struggle with that, and I'd admit to it. And more so when you move your office into your home, it's very difficult. But these people are really good at it. They can switch off the weekend. They don't answer their phone. They don't check their laptops. And why they stay motivated is because they don't burn out. So these are the things what I have noticed why people go into business and why people stay in business. So I'm happy if you've got any questions on this, or I'll just keep moving along, and I've got my Q&A open on the side for you. But the next thing I want to talk about is what we measure, we improve. Now, there is a saying, and I've heard people talk about this, if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. Now, whilst I sit on the fence on this, and I will finish off with my thoughts on this at the very end, I do think there are some things in life that can't be measured, but there are ways of checking in with how we feel, and that is a form of measure. But let's take the scales, okay? I hate the scales. I hate, and I'm sure anyone here would agree with me, getting on those scales is a horror story. It's kind of like I've got to psych myself up. So, and business is the same. Sometimes business owners don't want to know their numbers because they're afraid to see if they haven't made money, because they're relying maybe on the money that's in the bank, but don't want to know if their margins have gone up or margins have gone down. Well, for me, it's the scales. It's a nightmare. I don't want to know that I've put on 5 kilos, maybe 10 over the last 2-3 years. But I know if I don't do that, I don't have a benchmark. I don't know, okay, I'm at this weight now. I need to be at this weight. So here I go, start measuring, start doing all these things. And when I do that, I'm focused, I have a goal, and I will achieve it. But if I keep running blind, and I don't look at the scales, I'm not going to know if I'm getting any better or any worse. And it's also like with Olympians, same thing. They want to know that they're beating their PB all the time. How do they know if they're going to qualify for something? Same thing with business, okay? We shouldn't complicate it. I've just broken it down for you in something that we all do probably once a week, I definitely do. And this is the same thing in business. If we don't measure, we will never improve. So if that's not enough, I'm going to give you 5 more other reasons why measuring metrics is so important in business. The first one is it's to monitor your company health. You only need a handful of KPIs to monitor your company's vital signs. Now, only measure what you want to move so you can put the energy where you want to affect change. There's no point measuring something. Like, I'll be honest, I never measure my arms because I really don't care about those things. I measure my tummy area because that to me is a vital sign if I'm going to get diabetes or if I'm going to get heart disease. So no point measuring something that's not going to make a shift in your business. If it's not a driver or if it's a lever that you can change, don't measure it. Measuring reveals patterns and trends, okay? So if you measure the same KPIs month to month, you'll begin to detect a pattern in your numbers and you can predict things like when's your slowest quarter? Is it, if it's so slow in December, January for you, is that the best time to possibly undertake some further training or implement some new tech while you have downtime? Maybe you've got some team members who actually are underperforming, consistently or overperforming as well. So you can use that data to have meaningful conversations with them, okay? Or if there are consequences to someone not performing. The third one is, you uncover trouble spots and warning signs because that'll enable you to make adjustments and stay on track. So if you know your leading indicators, they're going to make sure that they let you know those danger signs. Next one is they indicate whether a goal needs to be adjusted, okay? Or to solve problems, to tackle opportunities. Let's say your sales are down for a month and you can identify a handful of KPIs that can help you turn the tide. Maybe it's making more outbound calls, having more appointments, seeing more clients. Let's say you've got a new product that you want to launch or a new service. Maybe creating some KPIs to validate if that business model or product is going to work or not. So how many customers are interested? What return will that bring to your business? But start measuring straight away so at least you've got something to build up on. Measure progress toward goals. So set targets at the beginning of each year, okay, so like a budget or a forecast, or each quarter. If you're starting off now and you've never done this, I would just do quarterly. Take little steps. Don't go into annual, start doing quarter, because measuring on a quarter to quarter is going to give you at least, it'll give you an introductory into it. So it's about building the habit. So measure progress towards those goals and you will see that what will happen is your shift will start changing. So driving growth through metrics. I highly encourage you to know your business goals. So I do a lot of public speaking around digital transformation and building a digital roadmap for businesses as well. What I do suggest here is you need to know what your business goals are, because if your goals are to double the number of customers you have, double your profit, have extra cash in the bank, that is how you're going to start building your metrics. Create a year-by-year plan. So this is a high-level plan, okay? So it doesn't have to be accurate, but it will be something, it's a working document you can keep going back to. Most importantly, determine the metrics that are relevant to your industry and business. Now, I have multiple different clients from hospitality to printing to retail. So I'm not going to use the same KPIs and the same levers for those businesses. I can categorize into the different types of industries I have, which makes it easy when you start niching. But when we don't niche, we need to make sure that our clients are looking at the relevant metrics for their industry. So the ATO do publish some benchmarks as well. So if you go onto the ATO tools, you'll find that even if you were to go through some kind of publication like CCH or Walters, they also have some benchmarks as well. Speak to your accountant advisor and say to them, what are my benchmarks for my industry? Because I want to know where I sit with those. Because if the average benchmark for my gross profit is 50%, maybe you want to outdo that. Maybe you want to be at 55%. So you see what I'm saying? You've got then something, a target that keeps motivating you. Now you need to define, I'm going to take these off because no one's talking to me, so I don't need them. Okay, defining the 5 metrics to drive growth. Okay, so you've all heard of the what, why, how, who, and when. Again, when I sit with clients and I look at digital transformation strategies, this is exactly what we need to do. So in your case, you're trying to define the metrics. So here is where you would start. You need to ask what is being measured. Like I was saying before, if you're not going to measure something, don't bother doing it. I see so many businesses, ones that we inherit, have these massive scorecards, dashboards with all these KPIs. And it's like, well, you don't even need those KPIs. You're actually missing some of the ones you need because you have inventory, you have stock, and you have no stats on what your stock holdings are, what your stock turn is. So again, understand your industry and what is relevant to be measured. 2, why are you measuring it? What's it going to do? What's the objective? Is it something you can control? Is it a lever you can pull quite quickly to shift things around? And again, with COVID, we found that those people that were measuring were able to quickly shift gears and do it. You know, I'm not saying that they flourished throughout it, but they were able to control their cost and contain and see through the lockdown period. Number 3, how will it be measured? What formula are you going to use? So understanding the formulas. And as business owners, I don't expect you to understand all these formulas unless you are accountants, of course. But again, I've got a worksheet for you that you can take away and you can start going through it and speaking with your accountant about what is applicable for your business. Number 4, who will be responsible for tracking and reporting the metric? So if you do have a bookkeeper or BAS agent or accountant working in your business, they're probably the best people to start reporting on that for you. That's what we do with lots of our clients. We do monthly management accounts and we make sure they have their metrics. And let me tell you, if we're a day late, they're looking for it because they crave those numbers. That's what keeps them motivated in their business because they're competitive and they want to keep doing better. And 5, when should it be reported? Is it monthly? Is it daily? Is it quarterly? I've got a client who reports daily sales figures, and everyone in the team, even myself, who's not part of their team, gets a copy of that email every night on the sales figures compared to where they are to target. So it keeps everyone motivated in the team as well. So sometimes don't keep these numbers to yourself. Pick which numbers you can share with your team, because when you share those numbers, you start making them also take ownership for their roles as well. So it's not about the result, okay? And this is where, coming back to my horrible scale story, I know it's not about the number on the scale. It's about me doing better. And it's the same in business. It's not about figuring whether you've made a loss or you've made a good profit. It's about the awareness. And if you don't have that awareness at least every single month, and I know there are a lot of businesses who only get a profit and loss once a year when they get their tax return done. Can I tell you now, if you take one thing out of today's session, change that. Make sure you are getting a profit and loss and a balance sheet at the minimum every single month. So measure from a place of curiosity. Okay, so, what are you curious about in your business? What would you think would make something a little bit different if you knew of it? That saying, curiosity killed the cat? Well, it's the same thing here. Don't leave anything unturned. If you want a number, find out. See what you need to do. See how you need to get that data into your system if it's going to make a difference. Now, I know e-commerce we have a lot of e-commerce clients. So we need to make sure that we can log into their back end of their Shopify accounts or whatever they're using to be able to pull those stats, to be able to give them the numbers. So their investment on advertising, their investment on social media, how many clients are coming back. There's some such powerful statistics in those e-commerce sites. Measure to discover, measure to understand, measure for your own self-awareness. Measure to see if everyone is showing up. And if you work for yourself, are you showing up? Ask yourself, am I doing all these hours? But what have I got to show for it? So start also putting some KPIs on yourself. Okay, so this isn't only if you have a team. This is probably just as powerful if you work solo. Measure to see if you're spending time on things that matter. We all spend time. God knows I do it. I will spend time on social media and I'll, because it's away from the numbers. It's a little bit exciting. I probably have a little bit of a marketing inside of me, so I don't mind doing it, but I know it's not adding a lot of value. I'm better off outsourcing that because I'm not spending time on the things that matter. Things that matter is doing the stuff that matters for my clients. Okay, now I want to talk about non-financial data. A lot of people think that all the information you need comes straight out of your accounting system. Not true at all. The most insightful indicators will come outside of your accounting system. Okay, like I was saying, I log on to my clients' Shopify accounts, or log on to their ordering system, or whatever other system they might have that's not integrated or that's not giving me information. So including non-financial indicators in your performance measurement, your business will be able to monitor all your objectives and eventually they align to your strategy. Because when we look at accounting information, it's almost like looking backwards, where the operational drivers of the future financial performance come from non-financial indicators. So your customer satisfaction, net promoter score, okay? If you take your NPSs, if you do them, I know that a lot of companies that I deal with ask me to do a survey, which then forms part of their net promoter score. Now, that will allow them to consistently improve their delivery to me and all their other clients. So powerful, because if your clients aren't happy, chances are you'll start losing them. So forget the P&L and the balance sheet. You've got to start here. So non-financial data. Is your service delivery, is that quality as well? Your operational performance. Things like, I guess the hours it takes. So if you've got a warehouse or a distribution center, what are those operational performances? Things like, picking and packing. How many orders can you pick in an hour? Can you do better by changing the way that the layout is? So I know this is probably at the big end of town, but I do come from that big end, so I can appreciate the numbers that the big end use. But what I try and do is bring that to small business, because I want to see small business succeed. And I want small business to also really get to understand those non-financial indicators. Your brand strength as well. So all that will come from doing a net promoter score. So doing one, even if it's not anything fancy like that, just a basic survey might help. Again, it comes down to the knowing. We're all scared to know what our clients really think of us. But if we don't know, how can we fix it? So we've got to measure those things as well. And environmental issues. That's massive, particularly in the accounting space at the moment. Huge on sustainability and what we're all doing for the environment as well. So maybe even look at those type of things. If you've got lots of waste, or how is your business helping the environment? So that's the non-financial data. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all these formulas. Yes, I am an accountant and I know numbers is something I do, but I wanted to give you an example of the numbers that motivate you. Now, I think I said I was going to give you 7, but I've actually given you 8 because I think 8's a lucky number. So things like sales per month, we all go, what do we do this month? Or what's your turnover? Well, scrap that. Yes, it's okay to know, but what's relative is your gross profit margin. That's more exciting. My clients will look at their GP before anything else, because if their GP is dropping, what will happen eventually is their bank account will drop as well. If your sales go up, it doesn't necessarily mean your bank account's going to go up, because if your margin's dropping at the same time your sales are going up, it's going to deplete your funds. So really important to watch your gross profit. The number of services you sell or the goods you sell, again, it's a bit like the sales. You want to be averaging a higher average per order. Now, we had one client who is a wholesaler, and they weren't measuring their average sales per order until I came along. I said, it's a simple formula. Let's do it. Let's get it on the dashboard. And as a result of that, they have actively spoken to their sales team and everyone in their team that when we take an order or we do any type of marketing, let's try and comp sell. Let's try and sell something else with it. I know it seems very basic, but not many people do it. So in this scenario, they did that, and I could see that because we track everything monthly, that their average sale per order went up by $200. So from when we started. So when you track something like that, you will keep an eye on it. But also, if you're not going to measure, if you're not going to take any action, then there's no point in measuring. People also talk about labor. Wages are up. Wages have gone crazy this month. That's fine, but as a percentage of your income, how did they go up? Are you still at the same percentage? If so, that's great, because your sales have gone up and you've managed to maintain your labor at the same kind of level. Hours worked, same thing. We've got to look at productivity and efficiency outputs. What are people doing? It's no use just looking at labor cost and your total expenses. You want to understand if your people are actually efficient and productive, and there are formulas for that. It depends on your industry. So if you're in hospitality, you'd be probably looking at the number of hours people work on the floor compared to people in the kitchen. If you're in printing, you'd be looking at graphic designers. You'd be looking at people on the floor also operating the equipment. So there's different types of levels as well. People also go on about cash at bank. Again, that's what crippled the economy throughout COVID. Working capital is your friend, because we all know that growth sucks cash. It is the first law of entrepreneurial gravity. As soon as you start growing, you will end up sucking the cash out of your bank account. So unless you know your balance sheet, and your balance sheet has to be accurate, it can't be half correct, it can't be half done. So if you're doing your own books, chances are your balance sheet is not correct. But if you have got yourself your accountant or bookkeeper, BAS agent doing your books, they should be accurate. In that case, you should be able to know in 3 months' time, will you have enough money to pay your bills, to pay your BAS? Because cash in bank is only telling you your situation today. It's a snapshot of today. Stock on hand, again, my clients say to me, we've got so much stock, we're sitting on so much stock. But okay, but what's your stock turn days? Now, COVID changed that as well, because of the logistics and the air freight and the sea freight. It took forever to get product in if you're importing. Most of my clients' stock turn days were very, very low, so below the accepted rate. But we knew and we were measuring, so it was okay. So we weren't just going, crap, all our money is tied up in stock. We knew exactly why, because we were measuring the metrics that mattered. We knew that their stock turn days decreased because they had to sit on the stock, because it was taking months to get their products here, and they didn't want to run out of stock online. Same with debtors. People look at their debtors. I had a client yesterday say, our debtors are at $1 million now. And it's like, yeah, I get it, but your sales have gone up too. But your debtor days are dropping. So the team are doing their job. So let's not have that conversation. When your debtor days go out and your sales are going up, or your sales are going down, then it's a conversation we will have. So you can see that it starts putting some substance behind the conversations, and they're just more motivating numbers. So I'm not going to go through this with you because I'm not going to bore you, but it's a takeaway for you. It's a takeaway for you to sit with your accounting advisor and go through some of these motivating formulas. So your labour productivity, your factor productivity, production output over direct costs, labour efficiency, all those things in here is how you calculate them and where you need to get the data from. So that's a takeaway there for you all. And I can't emphasize this enough. Count something, okay? The only requirement is that what you count should be interesting and beneficial to you personally and to your business, something that is going to make sense. And I understand you all probably know your profit and loss, your net profit. You probably all know your gross profit as well. But all those other numbers that I've gone through, see which one is relevant to you. Even if you take 3 of them out of today's session, it is going to make a massive impact on your business. Or if you know someone else that you think could use it, maybe it's not for you. Maybe you've got a mate who runs an e-commerce business or an importing business. Share these with them. So scaling through uncertainty. Okay, now this is something we're all so used to, and I actually find I struggle to use the term scaling and uncertainty in the same sentence. But let me tell you how it's done. Okay, and I hate using things like 4Ds or 4Ps, but there are 4Ds here, and it's easy for you to remember. The first thing is the demands. Okay, you've got to balance the demands of your stakeholders and those who are actually doing the work. Because those that are doing the work will probably be involved in the process, but those processes need to be profitable. Okay, so it's about, when we were talking about the person that stays in business is the one that looks at investing tech because they believe in automating processes. When you automate processes, undoubtedly you become more profitable, okay, because you can do so much more, you've got more data at your fingertips. But at the same time, I have seen where people automate things, set and forget, and your reputation becomes ruined and your stakeholders start losing trust in you. And stakeholders can be investors and they could be your customers. They could be your suppliers. So remember, balancing those demands takes effort and strategy, but those who scale know how to balance it. They're disciplined. So everything we've just gone through requires discipline. If you're not going to look at measuring those numbers and reviewing those numbers and taking action on those numbers, and you're not going to create a routine, then it's not going to work. And the drivers, you and your team, or if you're a solo owner, you are the driver of your growth and your company's financial growth. So throughout COVID, many of my clients put their people through training programs. It kept them motivated. It kept them learning. I know even some hairdressers who put their staff through some administration course only because they couldn't do anything and they felt that it was something that could tie them to them, like JobKeeper was, but this was a different kind of way. So look at those things as well. Because there's no guarantees we're not going to have another outbreak. Things will happen. whether it's a COVID, whether it's a recession or whatever, these things will be guaranteed. And I think that's something that we've all come out of the other way. We know that nothing is foolproof in business. But the last thing I want to say on this is decisions. You've got to make decisions quickly. We don't have time. So where you would have time to evaluate and go, yes, I like this strategy, or I like this piece of tech, how's it going to work? We don't have that luxury anymore because everyone is moving quickly. So if you have the information you need, real time, correctly, you'll be able to make those big decisions because your only competitive advantage is going to be speed to market. So tackle those big issues first. Data is your friend, and because you have it, you will be able to make decisions quickly and not sit on it, because the longer you sit on a decision, the more time will pass by and your competitors will be ahead of you.